Right, so welcome to another edition of SAW.DESIGN Designer Interviews. And my name is Dustin, and I'm your host. Well, I've been your host for almost time immemorial now since we're in PCQ. But still, hope you're still enjoying these videos. And for tonight, we have a guest from the UI/UX community. His name is Alexis Collado. He's a digital product designer from Kalibrr, but at the same time, he also runs this podcast called Roots, and that's where we are going to focus for tonight. So I'll be calling Alexis right now. Okay, thank you for actually saying yes to this interview, Alexis. So welcome to Social Distancing Designer Interviews. And first comment, I hate your setup. It's really nice. You're making us
Thank
look
you.
bad.
Thank you so much.
You're looking like
appreciate
Bill
it.
Gates. You're looking like Bill Gates in your interview. And
I attribute it to my girlfriend.
oh,
I asked her to give me the Camlink capture card for my birthday, like a year ago or 2 years ago. It's the
oh.
first time I used it. So yeah.
Grabe, ang ganda ng setup mo. I cannot help but look at it. But anyway, you know what? So, of course, ikaw yung magiging topic for this whole episode. So, first and foremost, I'd like you to introduce yourself. Who is Alexis Collado?
First off, thanks for having me, Dustin. It's been a while, and I think it's the first time we've met. And I'm so happy to be on your show. So for everyone who doesn't know me, I'm Alexis Collado. I'm a product designer. I'm also a podcaster for Roots. It's a podcast that profiles the lives and stories of Filipino designers all around the world. And I also am a podcaster for UX Almusal. So that's one with Christian San Jose, and we talk about UX. And the two of us also organize the conference UX Plus.
Right. Mabigat agad. As in, mabigat agad yung profile. I mean, how does it feel? Ito naman ngayon yung ini-interview, diba? So, I've been checking out your content kasi in Spotify. You already have 71 interviews. And how does it feel that ikaw na ngayon yung interview?
I feel very privileged that it's the first time someone actually interviewed me for it. So thank you for thinking of this.
That I cannot
Yeah,
understand
and
why.
I think it's nice to be able to share my story with everyone. Not everyone is curious. It's very interesting, and I'm sure maybe some people can get lessons from this.
Yeah, definitely. That's why ako nga the reason why I asked you for this interview, I was first hesitant kasi inisip ko mag-yes kaya to. So there, buti na lang you said yes. So now we will be zooming into what you actually do. You're a UI UX guy. But in this episode, I want to focus on your podcast Roots because it's really full of good content, and it's one of the inspirations also why we have this right now. So what was your inspiration for Roots?
Okay, what's the inspiration for Roots? So back in college, while I was in Ateneo, first year or second year, I was really active in this organization called User Experience Philippines. So yung UXPH, it paved the way for me to really get to connect with really high-profile people, great designers. So these are people who are very involved in the community, right? So what I would do was attend a lot of the meetups, get to know the people, make friends with them. So after every meetup, we would go for dinners. Tapos I would get to know their story. I would get to join yung parang hangout after no meetup. So that's really fun. And I recognize that not all of people have the same privilege that I do. Kasi, yun, as a student, I was able to attend meetups in Makati, BGC, like as part of my, as time. And then I was thinking, bakit kaya walang other students na gumagawa nito? Bakit ako lang yung nandito? So I started bringing other people in so they can meet awesome, amazing mentors in the user experience design community. And then I was like, parang ang hirap nito kung paisa-isa. So what if maybe there's a way to scale this, parang how do I share the stories of these amazing people where I actually benefited a lot from hearing their stories. Kasi after hearing their stories, that paved the way for me to get over, 5 internships, tapos uh, getting a lot of clients in terms of design, tapos really improving myself as a person and as someone who contributes to the community. So how do I share this kind of experience to other people? So in my third year of school in Ateneo, I thought of doing a podcast. So I thought of the name Roots kasi maybe Roots kasi yung mga guests, they're all coming back to their origin story, to their roots, kumbaga. No matter where they are now in their life, whatever their status is or influence around people, they're always gonna come back to where they came from and trace their story. Yun. And then I started thinking about, okay, what equipment do I need? And then I'm the type of person who just asks people. I don't ask for permission. Na parang literally, if I want something from them, I'm just gonna ask. Um, so yun, using my network, I started interviewing people that I know within the community, from UXPH, Philippine web designers, um, the people who mentored me in my internships, um, essentially everyone that I've built a relationship with already. I wanted to spotlight their stories so everyone in the community can benefit.
Wow, that's very nice to hear because everyone loves a good backstory. Kaya nga when we see movies, 'di ba? Parang when there's an origin story, it's almost always a hit. That's why what you're doing really is parang sometimes it's a thankless job. But at the same time, when people do understand what you're doing, it resonates with them. So ako, I'm very thankful for what you're doing because it's for everyone. Parang it's actually using your privilege for others to be better. So from all of your interviews, can you give us some samples of ano yung mga best nuggets of information that you got from them?
Oh, this is interesting. So when you do podcasting, it's sort of like you're learning in public, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Before the episode, I don't know anything about the guest. Maybe I do a bit of research so I can ask better questions. But within the episode, you get to really learn about their decisions in life, what their mental models are, how do they think. So kung baka based sa kwento ng storya nila, ma-apply mo rin sa sarili mo. And people who you thought would be inaccessible because of their status in life, or maybe just because no one had the guts to talk to them, diba? You can open that up to a lot of people. So I had the opportunity to interview people like Paolo Malapuyo. He's a director of UX at Google in YouTube, and
Right,
I got
right.
to understand his story.
Right,
Tapos,
because the names in your podcast are ano bigatin eh. Parang for me, if I'm going to also taking from what you just said, parang sometimes it seems that they are hard to reach, 'di ba? So galing lang ng ginagawa mo.
yeah, so I wanted to be the one to open it up for everyone. So they can just take a look at the list. That was my thought process. If I'm a new UX designer or designer, or I'm a graphic designer who wants to transition to user experience, ang usual na question mo, where do I start? Who do I talk to? What's an inspiration out there for me to base my career on? And thinking of that use case, um, what I wanted was to get a diverse set of people who can cater to all kinds of goals. So, for example, if you want to do a startup, if you want to do a design system, if you want to be a big shot in Silicon Valley, if you want to contribute to the UXPH community, if if you're starting from scratch, let's say you're not from a big school like Ateneo or whatever. I represent a lot of uh, those kinds of career journeys in the podcast. So it's not just, pang magaling lang siya. Dapat represented lahat. So that's what I'm trying to aim for. Get as much representation in the podcast as possible. But at the same time, interviewing the people that I know can provide that kind of inspiration to the people. So you can think of it as I'm also curating the list, right? So for
Right.
every podcast, I think for content creators, the list that they create really depends on the kind of person they are, right? And I guess my attitude or mindset or upbringing, map of life, uh, it represents the people that I interview. So yun, I actually really started with people or friends that I really respect in the community, and I tried to expand from there.
That is very inspiring for you to actually aim for, because yeah, not a lot of people have access nga to some of the personalities you have actually interviewed. Thus, parang it's a well curated list, and we're
Mhm.
actually excited
Thank
pa
you.
in seeing who would you still interview. Gano ba ano ba yung kaya can you give us some tips on actually how do you talk to them? Parang how do you saying na, hey, can I ask you for, is it as easy as that, or how do you how do you go ask them?
If you're starting from scratch, it's quite difficult kasi you haven't built the influence yet. You don't have the reputation. You're still building the brand. So in that case, you really have to capitalize on the existing relationships that you have. So for example, that's why I said that I started with people that I had a great relationship with already, right? So people who mentored me, friends, um, people that I look up to that also look up to me. So I capitalize on that. But later on, when you're connecting to other people, I think what just matters is, being human. What does being human mean? To me, that means being genuinely interested in their life, in their interests, in their career journey. Because if you're like that, I mean, I've done Roots for 70 plus episodes and counting, but no one approached me to interview me about my thought process for Roots, how it started. Ikaw lang, di ba? Just Dustin. That's pretty cool.
Because I'm
Um,
actually interested in what you're doing. Kasi nga, parang
yes, and
chronicler eh.
diba? That's a great example. You being interested, genuinely interested in what I do, that puts you like in a spot na really improves your relationship with me. And of course, I would feel really great for someone to spotlight my story, right? And what more if it's about their entire career journey. So by the fact na I guess I'm interested in their lives, in their careers, and no one else was interested in their career, maybe. To feature them in that kind of way, uh, it makes it easier for them to accept, I guess. And then, when reaching out to speakers, make sure that, you make them feel important. That's the most important.
Well, actually, yeah, because again, much like in how I try to select also who I will be interviewing, of course, I'm genuinely interested first. That's why I guess that's where yung making them feel important comes, diba? So I'm personally, I'm really excited on what you will still be doing in the future. So for each listener ba, so parang what is the end goal for Roots, if you have something in mind like an end goal for Roots?
First, inspiration. It really helps your career if you have a North Star, if you have a goal or a vision for yourself. Visualizing yourself is a lot easier if there are ready examples available, right? That's the first one. Second, Roots can pave the way for you to make more friends, right? Even if they're big shots or whatever, it doesn't matter. I like to think that it provides access. You can be part of this community. You can be friends with these amazing designers. It doesn't matter who you are. As long as you're interested in their lives, in their careers, you can become friends with them. And, with friends come, mentorship, great connections, great relationships, things like that. Next, I think direction. It's easy to feel lost in your career, not knowing where to go, where to start, what's the next step. But if you can just hear one story from someone who has done it, this person has done the thing that I want to do. I just need to listen, diba? I think that sets you on the right path in terms of the career that you want for yourself. And number 4, I think this is the most important. Roots is there so that you feel that you're not alone. You're part of a community. You're part of you know, as humans, we want to feel that we're connected with other humans. And my end goal for each listener is that they feel connected to more designers around them, to make those connections, kumbaga network effects. That's the most important thing. That you're not just part of the Filipino design community in the Philippines. It's a global Filipino design community. There are Filipino designers everywhere, and you are part of that community. You're not alone. If you're lost, these stories can guide you. And if you're really invested in your career, diba? You can literally connect with any of those designers on that list.
Wow. I mean, that was very eloquent. At the same time, ang ganda ng end goal. I mean, the last part that you just said, being interconnected, that's really nice. And at the same time, if I may, comment on it, parang stories are actual currencies of life eh. Na parang if you actually hear na, okay, so this happened to this person, so it's possible. So that's for me, you're doing something that should gather more attention so that people would be inspired at the same time. But Alexis, I don't want to take much of your time because I know upon seeing your work you have things to do. So my last question would be, um, upon understanding your work, at the same time understanding how people work in the UI/UX field, so can you help us understand in the simplest manner what is the definition of UI and UX?
So first off, UI is part of UX. UI stands for user interface, and UX stands for user experience. To me, the simplest definition, the one that I followed for quite a while, is this: user experience is about making technology as easy as possible to use. But there are different schools of thought. There are people out there that will tell you na, UX isn't just about technology. Kasi sometimes, to have UX, you don't need technology eh. Diba? So there are different schools of thought. So this is my definition. So user experience is about solving problems. So whether you use technology or not, UX is about designing good or great experiences. And great experiences depends on the context of the user. Hindi naman porket ang experience, let's say, mabilis, efficient, that means it's a good UX. It depends on the context. So sometimes for the user experience, you want to make it, you want to add some friction to the journey. Kasi kailangan eh. Kuwari, you're working in a fintech platform. Kailangan medyo stringent yung process. Hindi porket mabilis, okay na. Dapat secure. Dapat effective. Dapat it gives you a peace of mind. So at the end of the day, if we're talking about first principles, UX is really about problem solving. Now, ano naman ngayon ng UI? So the UI is what gives the affordance to the UX. So ano ba yung affordance? Essentially, it's what you interact with, or maybe let's say what you see. So ano yung user interface? Kuwari, you're holding a camera. What's the user interface of the camera? Diba? You have to hold it this way. Ito yung ergonomics niya. And then you apply that concept digitally. That's the user interface. So essentially, when people say UI/UX, essentially they're referring to making the user interface as easy as possible to use, diba? And really thinking of the UX in that kind of way. But like what I said, there are different schools of thought. There's no one definition. No one has agreed on one single definition for UX. But I would urge people to understand as many definitions as possible, expand their mindset on what user experience is, and don't close yourself off in terms of learning. Like, be open-minded with understanding the different mental models around user experience. So actually, if you do a bit more research, you can see that there are terms like service design. Kasi ang UX naman, most of the time, I'm a product designer. I apply UX to digital products. That's it. Pero paano kung, ngayon, we're in a COVID world, we're in a pandemic, and it's not about always digital experiences. But if you're in a hospital, if you're a patient who has COVID, what's the journey like? What's the process like? What's the service like? So in that way, you apply UX through services. So that's another way of looking at it. Diba? Parang, kuwari, mag-order ka ng burger sa McDo. What's that service like? Diba? Like, what are the touch points? Iniba na nila, diba? May screen na, like, you have to press stuff to order your burger, and then go to the cashier. And then, usually kasi sa UX, ang tinitingnan lang, ano yung front, like, what do you see in the front for you, diba? Pero what are the backstage what are the backstage actions? Ano yung nangyayari sa likod habang pinipindot yan? Diba? Pag kuwari sa Shopee, and add to cart mo, tapos binili mo na, ano yung nangyayari sa likod? That's service design. Diba? And actually, some people would say na UX is also that. So, ano ba talaga? So, it's a very confusing field, but very rewarding if you learn it.
Well, the way that you explained it, it's very simple enough for us to understand what how it actually helps us in dealing with, solving problems, and that should help us understand what design really is. So design is about solving problems, and you really helped us understand it very well. So there, thank you so much, Alexis, for
I
your
have a quote for you
yeah.
actually.
What?
Um, so UX is like a joke. If you have to explain it, it's terrible joke. It's terrible
Right,
UX.
right. That was very smart.
Yun.
That was very smart. And actually, the very appropriate. Tama. Tama. I would really agree on what you just said. So, there. Thank you para sa pahabol na quote. Thank you para sa pahabol na quote.
Yeah.
And,
Thank you, Dustin.
Alexis, sana hindi naman dito nagtatapos din yung how we interact with each other. And after the pandemic, after when it's relatively safe, I hope that I get to meet you in person about that. I hope.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
So we can collaborate on something. So there, thank you, and I hope people would, understand more of what we do. And because of that, I'll be placing links in this video so that they would have access on what we do, so that they could also be inspired on what we do. So there, thank you so much, Alexis, for your time. And there, thank you.
Thank you, Dustin. Thanks,
See you.
everyone.
See you next time.
See you.
Hey, thanks for tuning here at SAW.DESIGN PH, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of Social.DESIGN Designer Interviews. Our goal is telling Filipino graphic design stories. If you'd like more content like this, how about clicking the subscribe button here? I think it's here, so you get more video resources about graphic design. And we're expecting to see you watching again here at SAW.DESIGN PH.